If someone were to sue you, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you legal advice, but if someone were to sue you and you have your business and your personal assets mixed, so let's say you owned, I don't know, a $600,000 house, you're like doing really well personally, but your business maybe not doing so well. Someone sues your business. Your $600,000 house is now 100% liable because you are mixing the two of them.
Welcome to the Process to Profit podcast, where we find out about the key processes and productivity techniques that drive successful service-based businesses. Whether you're just starting out or looking to scale, join us as we uncover practical strategies to streamline your operations and help you make more money by boosting your profitability. Let's get started. My guest today is Samantha Eck. Samantha is a bookkeeper for creatives. She started her business with the goal to help others thrive by reading the story their numbers are trying to tell them so they can grow their business by making better decisions. Along the way, her passion for helping others grew, and she is now a coach for bookkeepers. She focuses on helping them gain confidence so they can become fully independent in 6 to 12 months. Samantha, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. So I know I read your bio, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are, who you help, all of those good things?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Samantha, obviously. Like Lauren said, I am a bookkeeper and a coach for bookkeepers. I help creatives, and creatives is very broad. When I say creatives, I don't mean just like a very set, limited amount of people. I mainly identify with creatives who have done those sort of handmade projects because I used to be in their space. However, I've helped a variety of different people from coffee shop owners to graphic designers to photographers. So, whoever really has that creative bone in their body. As I grew my business and became more passionate about it, I saw a need for bookkeepers who really needed someone to kind of like take their hand and guide them through some of their processes, some of their back end work, just to give them a little bit of guidance so that they could have the confidence to fully grow their firm to the level that they want to grow it to. So, I decided to jump on and help them with that. But yeah, my journey has started from going from corporate bookkeeping all the way to starting my own business. And I don't think I'd ever go back. Really, really, really love running my own business and having the freedom to do what I need to support my family.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever go back either. I'm right there with you on that one. You recently started a podcast, right?
Yes, I did. It's called Creative Minds Smart Money, and it's for creatives, and it encompasses pretty much all areas of business. Though with the solo episodes, we really touch on those finance topics, and then when we have guests, it'll be other people who have a more detailed expertise into those areas because I don't want to speak on areas that I don't have expertise in.
Same for me. I have no bookkeeping expertise, which is why you're here today to tell us all about it. So let's start with, what should people be aware of, service providers, coaches be aware of with their bookkeeping? Like, what should they maybe focus on when they first start? What should they make sure they have set up? What should it look like for them?
Yes. So I always believe in getting a good accounting system, and it doesn't matter what accounting system you go with, pick the one that works best for you. I've told people this time and time again, don't go with just something that your bookkeeper tells you, don't go with something that someone else has told you. You need to figure out what works best for you because you as a business owner also needs to be knowledgeable about what's happening in your business when it comes to bookkeeping. So when you hand it off to someone or whoever it is, you need to at least have that foundation. So if you're picking the software and you're getting in there and making sure that it's set up properly, you've done everything you need to do with it, by the time you are ready to hand it off to somebody else, you already know what's going on in your books. So it's not a shock to you when they bring you information or they do them for you. But getting that set up first, definitely a software, and then just tracking those income and expenses. It's super basic. You're not going to get a whole lot of information out of it, but at least you know that your starting point is to track the income and track the expenses so that you can see where your money's going and where it's coming from.
So that's a great starting point for people. Do you think people can start with just a spreadsheet if they're just getting started, or do you think they really need a software to do it?
Yeah, I mean, if absolutely you're like, I can't afford a software, 100%, I think a spreadsheet is fine. Once you start to expand and grow your business and your bookkeeping gets to a certain level, it's just too complex for a spreadsheet that you can't really track it on a spreadsheet. But if you're really basic, you're just taking in payments, you're paying ChatGPT, you're paying, I don't know, some other sort of software during the
Canva,
month.
probably.
Yes, then that is totally okay to track on a spreadsheet. But once you start, having different payment processors like Stripe and PayPal and Square, or you start doing like in-person events or something like that, that's when you're really going to start to need and lean on that accounting software.
So that's all great advice. Once people do start tracking their financials, what should they be looking at? Should they be checking? How often should they be checking it? What does that look like for a business owner?
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer that you should set aside a time monthly. If you have more time than that and you can look at it weekly, that's also fantastic. As someone who's a numbers nerd, I look at my numbers weekly. But I also understand that us as business owners are very busy. So if you can at least set a time aside monthly to sit down and look at your books, I like to call it your little coffee date, your little wine date. Pull out some wine, pull out some coffee, pull up your financials, take a look at them, and what you're looking for really is key indicators of what's going on in your business. So if you're comparing this month to last month and you see that your revenue dropped, why? Why did your revenue drop? You see that your expenses increased. Why did they increase? Did you have a new subscription that you purchased last month? Did you buy a new piece of equipment? Just analyzing that and understanding why things are happening in your business is going to give you that deeper understanding of what's going on. And obviously, when you're looking at that, you don't just want to say, oh, well, I just made a little bit less because I didn't have a client last, or I lost a client last month. But why did you lose that client last month? Like, was there a hole in your process? You want to use that to fuel the reason to better your business or fuel the reason to understand what happened.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for business owners to kind of have that information at their fingertips because a lot of people I think are just kind of flying by the seat of their pants and they're like, well, this month feels more profitable than last month, but if you're not looking at your numbers, you don't really know if you're actually making money or not. You don't know where your money is coming from and what you should be focusing on more in your business and all of those things. So as scary as it may be, I think looking at your numbers is super important. So what sorts of things, I know you talked a little bit about this, but what sorts of things should they be looking at when they look at are there specific reports that they should pull if they are using software? Or what patterns should they be looking for? What kind of information are they trying to get?
Yes. So in my firm specifically, and I'm pretty sure most bookkeepers, but what you should be looking at is your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your statement of cash flows. Your profit and loss, I always like to describe this as it tells you kind of where your money came from and where it's going. It shows you what your bottom line is. Your bottom line is your revenue. Everybody always shows, when we see on threads, coaches and stuff like that, I made 10K last month. I made 10K last month. But how much did you actually make? Did they actually make 10K or did they just bring in revenue of 10K? Because when you subtract your cost of goods, you subtract your expenses. If you only made $2,000, but you said you brought in 10K, are you really making money? So that's what you want to look at with that profit and loss. With your balance sheet is what you owe, what you own, and what's left over. So that's your way of analyzing, okay, what does my business own? What do I owe if you have any loans, credit cards, things like that? And then whatever is left over is usually the equity, the stake that you have in your business. And that's when we always ask ourselves, what stake do I have in my business? If you have a really negative equity, then that's probably a concern because you want to ask yourself, I really don't have a stake in my business. Why is that? And then with the statement of cash flows, again, we're analyzing where our money came from in any given month and where it went. So we're seeing, okay, we made 10K in profit, but we spent this much in expenses. We invested in an asset, and this is where our money went. So those are the three ones that I really like to say, just take a look at, really analyze, and dig into. And like I said, that revenue number is more important than your profit. Never. Everybody always says, "Oh, look at my net income. Look at my net income. I made 10K." But looking at the bottom line revenue is going to help you understand your business on a much deeper level than just looking at how much money you brought in any given month.
Yeah, and I think those screenshots like you were talking about are so deceptive on
Yes.
Threads and on Instagram of like, "Oh, yeah, look at all this money I made." But like you said, how much did they spend on ads? How much did they spend on a team to support them getting to that number? They never talk about that
Yes.
part. So So, switching gears a little bit, you are a bookkeeper for creatives. You've also started coaching bookkeepers. So, what are some things when they're hiring a bookkeeper should business owners look for when they're talking to someone? And, what traits should they look for? How should they find a bookkeeper? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, first of all, I always like to say when you're looking for someone as a bookkeeper, you want to be looking for someone that you vibe with. So I'm not going to vibe with everybody, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that you have a really great connection with them, whether personal or professionally, you really connect with their values, things like that, then that's a really great option for you. Aside from that, other things that you want to look for, I never tell people to look at their like background because you could have a really phenomenal bookkeeper who's never went to accounting school, never had it corporately, but they're like one of the best out there. So, does a background matter in some contexts? Yes. But should you like weigh that for choosing a bookkeeper? Absolutely not. Because like I said, they could have really, really great skills that they just learned and gained and understood that they're one of the best bookkeepers out there, even though they didn't go to school. So, vibe is definitely one of them. Just really getting to know them, looking at their website, looking at everything like that, looking at their testimonials. And even I, as a bookkeeper, always tell like my clients when I'm coaching them, never be afraid to share the names of clients of people like, hey, is there someone I can talk to that can give me some feedback on you? Don't be afraid to share, the person that you want to talk to so that they can get to know them. Because if they get to know one of your current clients and they see the feedback that they're getting from your current client, that's really going to help you to understand them. So if you're looking for a bookkeeper, don't be afraid either to ask, hey, can I speak to one of your current clients? Because that'll give you some really good aspects. One of the other things you want to look for is kind of what they offer within their packages. Do they offer just basic bookkeeping? Do they offer where they just throw you your financials, or do they offer that more in-depth analysis into your financials? Do they offer those CFO services? What is it that they offer? Usually you can tell when you're ready to look for a bookkeeper based on how much time you have on your hands. If you are stressed about it at the end of the month and you're like, I can't even do my bookkeeping, that's when you know that you're ready to call someone on to help you out.
Yeah, you took the next question right out of my mouth of how is someone going to know when they need a bookkeeper? But I think being stressed about your bookkeeping is a pretty good sign that you need a bookkeeper. So they are interviewing bookkeepers, and you said it's a lot about vibe. What are some questions that people should ask when they are interviewing their bookkeeper to kind of figure out if they're a good fit for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely ask what their values are. Like if they are more valued, and I mean, nobody's ever really going to say this, but if they seem more money valued, you definitely know that they're more in it just to make money. But if you see them really asking you about questions about your business, about you, things like that, you can tell they're more interested in you and your business and your business's success. So just kind of prodding that. And again, I don't really know the whole process behind other bookkeepers' interviews, but usually my questions are not focused on me telling you what's in my package. My questions are focused more on what are you going through? Like what do you need specifically? Are you stressed because you can't get to your books? Are you don't know your numbers? What do you need from me that I can assist you? So even asking that, if your bookkeeper has not asked that, ask that. Like, how can you help me? How are you different than another bookkeeper? What can you do for me that will help me understand my numbers on a different level than just me looking at my own financials? And that would be probably one of the best questions that you can ask them flat out, because if they can't answer that, then you know that maybe you haven't found the right person to work with.
Yeah, and I like you said, vibe is so important. Values are really important. And obviously we're all
Yes.
in business to make money. But if you're only in business to make money, then get a job at that point. Like,
Yes.
it's probably not the right fit for you and probably not the right fit for your clients to only be around for the money. So, what are the processes that someone should have in place before they're ready to hire a bookkeeper? What should they make sure that they're already doing? What should they consider of their back end processes before they bring in a bookkeeper to run things for them?
Yeah. So even if you're not actively tracking your income and expenses, just having your bank account connected to your software would be a really good first step because that's going to help your bookkeeper if you do hire them to be able to just dive right in and do your books for you. Obviously, if you do track your income expenses, that's even a step better, making sure that you are keeping track of those. That's going to help you a lot. Making sure that your business and personal are separated. And that is so, so important. A lot of people say that, oh, it doesn't really matter. Why should it affect anything? It's not a big deal. And you know what? I want to say this right now. It happens. I understand as a business owner, sometimes you will spend personal money out of your business bank account. It happens to everybody. I have never seen a business owner yet that it hasn't happened to. But what I'm talking about is severe commingling, where you're just running your social life out of your business, going out for a drink on a weekend or something like that. That is what I'm talking about when I say, mixing business and personal. Getting the two of those completely separate is going to be so vital because it will show you better numbers, period. If you have your personal mixed in with your business, your equity is going to be really messed up because a lot of it is going to have to be distributions or contributions or whatever you want to think about it. And I can speak from experience because I have a client who their business is still in their personal account. And, I support that? No, but I also understand that sometimes people are very set in their ways. And until they learn to see that how it's affecting their numbers, they're not going to change that. So definitely separating the two of those is another one. But then also just having a really good idea of what your systems are. Where does your money come from? Does it come from Honeybook? Does it come from Square? Things like that. Understanding those systems and understanding where your money comes from and understanding who you have to pay as well. Like where is your money going? So having kind of, I know this is restrictive when people think of this, but a budget. For example, I use YNAB where I put in all of my subscriptions every month. And it's just as a knowledgeable way for me to understand and know, okay, I have, $31.98 coming up for Descript that I need to pay for in 2 days. That would also be really good so that you can understand your common expenses that are going in and out of your bank account.
Yeah, I have mine all listed in a spreadsheet, but it's there. It's all tracked. So back to the commingling of the personal and the business. That is a big thing for new business owners to overcome. What
Yes.
are your recommendations for sort of getting out of that mindset of, oh, it's so hard to have a business bank account and I don't want to separate things and it's all my money. I'm a sole proprietor. What difference does it make? How can you recommend that people get beyond that thinking and understand the importance and the necessity of separating the accounts and the information?
Yeah. So I always tell my clients to do this. It's a legal thing. So if someone were to sue you, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to give you legal advice, but if someone were to sue you and you have your business and your personal assets mixed, so let's say you owned, I don't know, a $600,000 house. You're like doing really well personally, but your business maybe not doing so well. You have a $600,000 house. Someone sues your business. Your $600,000 house is now 100% liable because you are mixing the two of them. Because when they look at your assets or they look at your financials, they look at your bank account, all they're going to see is your personal mixed in with your business. And a lawyer's not going to be able to tell the difference between that because they're just supposed to give like the judges and everything, the documentation that they have. So if you don't have that already sorted out, you're going to be in really deep water. So that's one of the biggest reasons. But another thing to kind of like ease into that, I always tell people to do is if you have a personal bank account, so let's say you have a Chase account, Chase also has business bank accounts. It's so easy to go into Chase and be like, hey, I want to open a business bank account. Your money can be connected so easily that if you're desperate, you're like, oh my goodness, I need $100 and your business is $100, it's a 2-second transfer. Your money is in your bank account. And it's so simple. I understand that some people are like, oh, hey, it's going to take 2 days for it to transfer. If that's really a concern and you're like, I need that money right now, then just go to your local bank where you have your personal bank account, set up a business bank so that you can have your money connected at all time. That's what I do. And it gives me that peace of mind, not knowing money's sitting out there for 2 to 3 days to get into my personal account because it's there. And that gives me that kind of peace of mind. And that should also give people who kind of have that roadblock that same peace of mind.
Yeah, and I think people get so weird around money. Like we have a lot of hangups around it and a lot of, concerns about privacy around it. How can someone, get over that but other potential fear of I don't want, a bookkeeper seeing my dirty laundry. I don't want them seeing sort of my bad financial habits. How do they get over that mindset of being afraid to show someone sort of how the sausage is made in the behind the scenes of their business?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard, right? Because a lot of people are very, very scared of someone coming in and seeing their personal life. And that's something actually I always say whenever I go into like a discovery call. I say, I know that finding a bookkeeper is a very personal thing. So I want to make sure that we're a good fit. So finding comfort in somebody is going to be so important, especially if you are looking for a bookkeeper, because you feel that. You feel like, oh, this is so personal. I know I need a bookkeeper, but I'm scared. Just finding comfort in somebody and understanding, are they going to be judgmental of my spending habits? Are they going to scold me? Things like that. Because I've had clients personally who have come to me and who've been like, hey, I feel very like scolded. I feel like the person before you told me that I couldn't spend my money on coffee. Whereas me, I'm like, if you want to spend your money on coffee, go ahead and spend your money on coffee if that's what makes you happy. But is that going to help your bottom line? Is that really where you want to be spending your money? Instead of scolding you, we kind of prod you with those questions. But I think that's the difference is that you really need to find someone that you have that comfortableness with, almost like you feel that vibe and you're like, "Yes, this kind of person I'm going to feel fully comfortable giving all of my information to and having them come into my life and be able to see both the personal and the business side." Because even though you're not sharing your personal bank account usually with your bookkeeper, they're still going to see when you take money out for your personal. They're still going to see, if you do end up accidentally mixing personal. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to find that comfort and that connection with your bookkeeper enough to be like, yes, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's like going to the doctor and then not telling them all your symptoms, and so they can't
Yes.
help if they don't know what everything that's going on, because then they don't have the full picture. So it's hard for them to give advice without seeing all of it.
Yes, absolutely.
So what are some other, I've already hired a bookkeeper, what are some other processes that business owners should make sure that they have in place or that they're starting to create once they do have a bookkeeper on board? Are there any other things that they should be making sure that they're doing, making sure that their bookkeeper is doing? What are the other things behind the scenes that should be happening?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously you should be making sure that your bookkeeper is clearing your bank accounts every month in whatever software they're using. If you're seeing your bank feeds just stay with transactions, you obviously know that they're not doing their job. Um, and communication wise, I think that's the most important thing is just making sure that you have that firm line of communication with them and being able to talk to them. So whether that's an email, whether that's a phone call, a lot of bookkeepers offer those strategic calls, not necessarily every month, but every couple months, every 6 months, things like that, so that you can connect with them and really dig deep into like your numbers. So that's a great option as well as making sure that you're on that call, you're getting all of your fears and things like that out. But I also say that one of the biggest things that you should have set up as a process is your goals. You should know what you want to make in revenue. That doesn't mean, oh, yeah, if I want to make 10K in revenue, we need to make 10K every month. That's more saying, I want to make 10K in revenue. How do we get there? Like, what do we need to do to make that 10K? And, just understanding what you want to make in expenses, what you want to have in this. That way, your bookkeeper can be aware of those things and say, you only wanted to spend 30% on expenses, but we spent 50%. So where can we cut back so that you're only spending that 30% on expenses? Just those types of things. But definitely, I would say goals and just having an idea of where you want your business to go is going to be one of the strongest processes you can have once you do have a bookkeeper.
And that's something that I preach a lot on this podcast is having a vision for your business and for your life and how they commingle and what you want all of it to lead to. And it may not
Yes.
be, your final destination, but what's the next one? Like, what are we aiming for? because it's really hard to make any decisions in your business if you don't know where you want to go, because all of your decisions should be
Yes.
leading you towards that destination or that point in the journey, I should say.
Yeah.
And by not having it defined, it's hard to know what decision you should be making. So it's good to hear that it all commingles with your finances as well.
It does, yeah. I'm a very firm believer of bridging that gap, and it's something that I like to teach too is making sure that you're bridging that gap because a lot of people just think that their finances are their finances. But if you aren't bridging that gap between the two and understanding the end goal, you're not really going to see the whole journey. Like you're not going to get a journey to get to that end goal.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, also what I work with people with is, figuring out, all right, that's the end goal, what's the steps that we have to take to get there? So tying it into their financials is gonna be really important too. Talk to me a little bit about taxes. So, I know that some people say your bookkeeper and your tax specialist should be the same person, they should be separate people. What are your thoughts on that? And then how do you sort of handle that situation, I guess?
Yeah. So I actually used to do taxes in my firm, but I stopped doing it because I felt that it was a little bit of a bottleneck, if that makes sense, because I'm doing your bookkeeping and now I'm doing your taxes. What if I'm doing something wrong? What if I didn't catch something? And nobody's perfect, right? Like there's going to be something every once in a while that a bookkeeper or a tax person is going to get incorrect. So having someone else check your work and make sure that you're doing it correctly is going to be far more valuable than you being like, oh yeah, I can do your taxes and your bookkeeping. So, realistically, do I think they should be separate? Yes. I think you should have someone separate for your taxes, and I think you should have someone separate for your bookkeeping because they're going to offer different things as well. As a bookkeeper, we have different standards and education that we need to keep up with, and a tax person is going to have different standards and education that they need to keep up with. Tax law is changing so much every year, and there's so much that goes on in the tax world that there's a lot to keep up with, and I think it's 60 hours of continuing education that they require you to have every year. So, to understand that, it takes a lot of work, and that's why it's better to just have someone be separate. So, when someone comes to me and they say, "Hey, I need some help with taxes. I need some help with that." I'm like, "I can help you all the way up to taxes. I can get you prepped. I can have your financials ready, and then I can get you to hand them off to somebody else. And I have great contacts for that. So I'm always willing to hand them off to someone that I know is trusted, but I will always tell them, I don't do your taxes, but I will get you all the way to the point where we just hand it off to your tax person and they can file it for you." So, to answer that in plain English, I am a very firm believer in separating the taxes and the bookkeeping side of things.
Yeah, and that, then, you hear a business owner thinking, "Well, that's more money I have to pay to someone." So, you have to weigh, I think, the benefit versus the cost too. Having
Yeah.
someone to catch those mistakes is a good benefit. It's a good reason to have two separate people because, you don't want them repeating that same mistake across your bookkeeping and your taxes. So, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much. If there is any last sort of words of advice that you want to leave our listeners with, whether it's something you've already said or something you want to reiterate, something new that you want to introduce, what would that last piece of advice you want to leave our listeners with be?
Yeah. So I would say it's a little bit of a three-step process. One, separate your business and your personal finances as soon as you can. Two, track your income and expenses. And three, if you are at that point where you're stressed to the nines with your finances, reach out to someone to get some help with that, whoever it may be.
Great advice and advice I need to also consider in my own business. Notice me looking away. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. If people want to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website, obviously firestormfinance.com. That's the best place to reach out to me if you want to work together. If you want to catch me on socials, I'm most active on Threads at Firestorm Finance and Instagram. And I am also starting a YouTube channel where we'll be talking about, different sorts of systems and strategies and things like that, going deeper for people who are beginners and then deeper for people who have a little bit more experience in their things like that. Also, my podcast if you want to check that out, Creative Mind Smart Money, anywhere you can find podcasts. But yeah, that's where
Great.
you can find me.
All right. And I will link to all of that in the show notes and in the YouTube description. Did you have a free gift that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, actually, I have two. So if you're someone who's very new to business, I have a QuickBooks setup checklist that will get you started and get your QuickBooks set up just to where you need it to be so that you can get started. If you are someone who's already in business and you're like, I just want to take it to the next level, I need to know how I can understand my finances better. I have a free strategic success mini workshop, which will delve deeper into your numbers and helping you understand them on a deeper level.
All right, great. And I will make sure I link both of those as well. Samantha, thank you again so much for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation, learned a lot, and I think that our listeners did too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lauren.
Yeah. And thank you all so much for listening and for watching, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.